Welcome, everyone, to the Take Ownership podcast, where we discuss all things taking ownership, whether it's business, real estate, or just life in general. I'm your host today, Josh Smith, and today we have got a very special guest. I am super excited about this one. So I met this gentleman back it was earlier last year, and one thing I was super impressed with him is if he doesn't know what he's talking about in that field, he will most definitely figure it out. This guy is super tenacious. When I first met him, he was kind of dipping his toes a little bit into the real estate space, but he was also one of the most knowledgeable ones that I was talking to, which I was super impressed. He did his research. He knew what he was talking about, but that's not all we're going to talk about. He actually runs his own digital marketing business, so it has a lot to do with lead generation. We're going to get into that. Obviously, if you don't have leads, I'm sorry, you do not have a business. So if you're looking to get more business, this is definitely going to be the conversation for you. So with that, I'm excited to announce Mr. Will Yu to the podcast.
Thank you so much for that intro, Josh. And honestly, I think me and you met on the lunch line, right?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. It was like at the end of the event, it was so give a little background about people for us. Like we met at the Owners Club, was the mastermind hosted by Pace Morby, and Josh and we were on the same line towards the end of the first retreat. I think we had in Arizona, and we just stood next to each other and then chopped it up and ended up becoming pretty good friends afterwards. It's probably one of like my dearest relationship that I built in the Owners Club. Not saying it because it's on your podcast, but genuinely, you're one of the people that I definitely kept in contact with. And the beauty of it is like, it's very, very natural because you just helped me out a lot in my, professional like real estate career. It's not like a client-based relationship where some of the other guys that I speak to, it's like, okay, if you need lead gen, it's like, okay, potentially we can work together. But with me and you, it's just very natural progression of like, okay, how can we help each other out long term, right?
Yeah, definitely.
But dude, really appreciate that intro.
Yeah, that's awesome. No, I appreciate you, man. Like I said, I can definitely resonate with that because you're super down to earth, always been super helpful, and like I said, extremely knowledgeable. So I am extremely excited about this conversation. But really, how I like to get these things started off is I want to give the audience just a little background of kind of what's led you up to your current point and a little bit about what you're doing right now.
Gotcha. So I've been a serial entrepreneur ever since basically after college. Like even during college, I was like watching a lot of bigger pocket stuff. Always knew that I wanted to get into real estate, but just never had the community aspect where like the kind of like the family background. I'm a first generation immigrant. I came to the States when I was 7, raised by a single mom, and I never really had the real estate like upbringing because none of my family members were in real estate in the U.S. All my immediate family members are still overseas in China. I knew that real estate was gonna be the field that I wanted to get into, not because of the fact that it's like, oh, that's my passion, my dream. It was just like I just knew a lot of people made money in real estate, and I wanted to make money, right? I know it sounds crazy, right? But
Hey, I'm a part of it, so I understand.
dude, and towards like junior, senior year of college, I was just so over school, right? I'm just so ready to like just work. So kind of just watched a lot of bigger pocket stuff. And when I graduated, I got into basically like, I got my real estate license. I was like, yeah, I'm going to be a realtor. Little did I realize, I was like, you don't really invest in real estate as a realtor. It's like kind of like wholesalers, right? Like the guys that I primarily work with wholesalers nationwide, generate leads for them, off-market acquisition, motivated sellers. But similar to wholesalers, they're not really real estate investors. They're just, marketers, and they build out acquisition companies for very front-end traffic sales. So learn really fast in New York City, it's very hard to be a realtor, right? Typically you have to do a lot of leasings, and there's not a lot of like, typically if you don't have some type of family backing, you're not going to get any legitimate listings. You're doing rentals most of the time for just running around the city with your head cut loose, and then just like it was just not it, dude. And I ended up getting a sales gig, and my buddy of mine, he reached out to me after like 6-7 months of me being at the sales job, which I love, by the way. We were just cold calling, which kind of like makes me like a maniac. I love cold calling.
I think you're one of the only ones that loves that. It's awesome.
I thought it was hilarious. It's just like when you're picking up the phone, pretend you know them a little bit. It's like, hey, Josh, this is Will. I never spoke to you in the past, Josh, but like, pretend that I talked to you. I thought that just like the psychology of sales was amazing. But he said, hey, well, let's start an embroidery and screen printing business. I'm like, what the hell is that? It's like, let's make like embroidered goods for like fraternities and sororities. I'm like, let's freaking do it. I was like, what's the worst thing I can do, right? During that time, I was like doing sales, cold call sales. And I just realized once the CEO walked into the room with his like super hot wife, they look like they just went on a shopping spree. And I'm out here cold calling contractors for like 12 hours in a day. I'm like, dude, I'm doing the wrong thing. I need to work for myself. So my buddy said that year, and I quit my like 100K plus job because that year I think my base was like 30, 40. And then I was on track to make an additional 80 to 100 grand in just commissions my first year alone working at the sales job.
Yeah.
So it was not bad. But I was like, yo, F this. Like, let's go be entrepreneurs. So we did fairly good with that business. But then COVID happened and everything shut down. With all the money that I made during that time, and I got really lucky with like stocks. Funny enough, like I made a good amount of money trading stocks, thinking that I was young Warren Buffett, but I'm really not. I took a lot of the gains that I invested in properties down in Florida, and that's kind of how my real estate like investment career started. But so I used traditional DSCR loans because I had a business, very unfamiliar with like how to get like a traditional like Fannie Mae Freddie Mac loan, right? I invested using DSCR. And I guess it was pretty creative at the time, but I didn't realize it was creative. But now I'm like, okay, now when people talk about DSCR, I'm like, cool. I know a little bit about
I
that.
actually know what that
Um,
is.
yeah, I bought a couple properties, moved down to Florida after COVID just because everything got shut down. And then once everything got lifted, it was still weird. Like people were just going out a lot. Everybody felt like they had money, but I realized I was like, I'm not making a lot of money anymore. Like the income wasn't as consistent after COVID, but the expenses just went crazy. Like inflation just like hit us like a truck. I feel like, right? And I was like, I need to move and get away from my social circle because if I keep spending money the way I am right now, I'm gonna lose everything I've made. And the income wasn't just not as consistent because after the restrictions of like COVID and everything in New York was pretty rough. Moved down to Florida, ended up investing into a kickboxing gym with a lot of the capital that I had remaining. And we invested in Hermonzi's gym launch licensing program during that time. And that's kind of how like everything got started with my digital marketing career, where I learned and I realized everything in business is just at a high level once you have fulfillment down. And that's the only difference in businesses, right? It's just what's the service you provide or what's the fulfillment structure look like. But in the front end, it's all the same. It's just how do you get leads and how do you convert traffic, right? How do you get more eyeballs onto your business? How do you get people interested, come in asking you what you do, and how do you convert that traffic into paying clients, right? And once you have a good structure on the fulfillment, the second you implement a solid marketing channel, which is this direct response lead generation and a great sales acquisition team, you can scale any freaking business. And obviously, I was in the gym space, very low ticket. I'm like, okay, let's get back into real estate, and that's how I got back into this side of things.
That's awesome, man. I definitely want to talk more about the digital marketing side of things, but real quick, as far as like being a realtor in New York, I'm kind of wondering how that went from, so you're saying you're pretty much leasing the whole time. So you're not like my perception of realtors is you're like hopping in a car with them, and they're taking you around see houses. But in New York, really, I mean, what are you taking them on the subway?
You know what's funny, dude? My lifespan as a realtor lasted like 2 months.
That's
It was hard, man. It was like I didn't know anything about marketing. I didn't know anything. I knew sales just because I think sales is like a very personality based thing. And if you don't have the skill set, but if you have the innate nature to want to know people, I think that is sales, right, to a certain extent. And then once you learn the tactic, you can really take yourself from here all the way up to here, right? I was really good at just innate sales, just like being able to talk to people, really genuinely wanting to get to know them. But even then, like being a realtor in New York is super hard. It's not like the barrier to entry is super high. Like you need to know people, to be able to get somewhere in that business.
Got to be a part of
Or
the
you
mob
have
or
to be
something.
really good at marketing, which most realtors aren't.
Yeah, you pretty much got to be a part of the mob out there if you want to be in the realtor space.
Yeah,
That's
like you
funny.
have to be affiliated with like some type of family ties, and
That's awesome. So the Florida properties that you got, what you mentioned, you got the DSCR. And so for those who aren't aware of what that is, so it's a debt service coverage ratio loan. Really, you're just getting a loan for what the bank wants to see is how much are you like what's your profit for the company? It's really strictly an investor loan. So it's they just want to know what is your profit on that property and does it meet their ratio requirements on what they're looking to see. So it's not really going after your credit score. It's really over the profitability of the property. So really, really impactful tool for investors if you're doing kind of standard that route. I know Will's learned some even more creative things since then. But as far as those properties, what exactly like what's your exit strategy on those? I know you mentioned you got them around 2020, so I'm assuming short-term rentals or what's the play there?
so it's a triplex. The first property I ever bought was a triplex, down in Clearwater, Florida. Yeah, so
That's
we
Will
had
for you
bird,
guys. He just when he goes in, he goes all in.
dude. So little do people know, DSCR loans is probably one of the like it's hard to get into because it's very high on entry. It's like typically what 35% down.
Mhm.
So I actually went the complete opposite way. Most guys would just come in with an FHA or a VA loan as little down as possible. For me, I had to cough out a lot of money up front because I didn't have the W-2 income.
Yeah.
Right? So I had to be extremely creative of finding a property that I can get a DSCR loan with. And I had to pour in a lot of capital, which really hurt me. Which actually, I would say it hurt me during the time because I'm like, okay, that's a lot of liquidity out. And I'm like a young guy, like I'm not making as much money anymore after COVID. And I'm like, okay, where's the money coming from? And I lost a lot of liquidity. But also at the same time, blessing in disguise, I'm like, hey, I'm glad that I couldn't sell the home where I locked up the liquidity because my younger self would probably gambled away in like crypto or stuff or something, right? I lost a lot of money after the money I made in stocks, like over like quarter, I think, of a million in like crypto losses between like 2022 to 2024, I think. It was bad, dude.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
lost a fair amount in stocks during that time frame, but I definitely didn't go as ham as you did. That's for sure.
I really thought I was like the next like investing. Like I really thought
Next Warren
it's
Buffett.
like I thought I was the next work dude. I have this like I would say it's like a good trait and a bad trait. Like I have this unwavering confidence in my ability to do something, and it
That's
becomes
good.
like a bad thing at times because like when you think that like you're the best at trading stocks when it's just you're just purely gambling. But in my head, I'm like talking to myself, right? Men justify our decisions with logic, right? And I'm
100%.
like here, like, yeah, dude, like I'm good at
I
this.
got
Like I
this.
know
I
how
got
to
this.
charge. Yeah, I got this. And then I realized I really don't.
No, I was very humbled when it comes to stocks. I picked a few really bad ones. I won't say them on here, but I picked some really bad ones during that time frame. So I feel you there. But yeah, but that's the thing. I mean, honestly, the speed I've seen you do this time and time again on everything that you go after, like the speed in which you execute. That's the reason why you're so successful, is because you have like this crazy tenacity where you're just like, boom, okay, failed there, boom, failed there, okay, what do I do, what do I pivot and go to the next thing? Like you keep reiterating it until it's successful. So that's one of the things I've been super impressed with you. So that's awesome. It's good stuff, dude.
I really think it's like an ego thing. I think it's like I care about my. I think it's like a Chinese, like a very cultural thing for us,
Mm.
where we care about reputation, we care about how people perceive us in the world. I know it's not the best thing to have, but I think I am able to like utilize my culture to empower myself in a way where like I cannot let people around me down, and I need to be at a certain level of discipline where like the way I conduct business in order to feel like okay, I can sleep at night. But
It's not necessarily a bad quality. I worked for, I think I told you this, but I worked for Toyota for about 13 years. And that's the Japanese culture, but they're honestly the Asian culture as a whole. I don't want to like put it all into one box, but they're very like extremely dedicated. Like a lot of the Japan staff that I was working with, it was kind of the same mindset of, hey, I don't want to disappoint my family. I want to like bring my family honor, so on and so forth. And a lot of that kind of led back to status. So I definitely see where you're coming from that aspect. But yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, I think Japan, like they take it to another level where it's like they have this whole concept of like the ikigai, right? It's like their like whole sphere of like existence like tied into this little circle. But it's really cool if you look at it because I was watching a video recently about the grape farmers of Japan. Because like right now I'm at this stage where like I'm constantly trying to evolve, and it's not an easy process, right? It's constantly destroying your current self and rebuilding into the version that you want to be. And sometimes you can get lost in that process because of the fact that you're constantly chasing this facade until you reach it. That's basically what it is.
That's entrepreneurship, though, man.
And my lady is amazing, right? And she always says like, "What's enough? Like, when are you gonna be like, when do you have enough? Or like, when are you gonna be happy? Like, why can't you live in the presence a little bit more?" And I think as entrepreneurs, like we fail to like live like that. And we were watching this video on YouTube recently, which is like the grape farmers in Japan of how like they're just so disciplined in their craft, and every little like detail is like meticulously planned, and they don't do it like they do it for themselves, right? And it's like they're so in the moment. I'm just like, man, I need to like just take a break for a little bit. I need to go on vacation or something.
That's the thing. I mean, that's one thing I'm trying to be much better, and it's part of my goals for this year is to make sure I'm being a little more intentional with the personal side of time. I mean, because yes, we're gonna still work like crazy animals, probably more than most people would ever want to, but that's, I mean, it's something that we really enjoy. I mean, I definitely enjoy it. It seems like you enjoy it, but we still have to take that time. And like, I'm trying to be very intentional of, hey, at least every other week, my wife and I, we're going to go on a date. So we're still like, that's on the calendar. We're trying to stick, like, I know this series that Pace has been doing on the calendar, that's kind of been helping me be a little more strict to it, but like you incorporate those. And then we're discussing on, hey, granted, we've got 3 kids under 5, so it's as far as scheduling vacations, it's a little difficult. But we're committed to 2 vacations this year. But the thing is, you just gotta sit down and like put pen to paper and commit to it. And it seems like you can commit on other things, so I'm sure you can commit on that too.
The calendar has helped me out greatly.
Yeah,
I would just say that. Yeah, with my personal relationship, I think that's the most important thing. Just being able to block out family time, date night, and just times where like I'm not allowed to be on the phone. And sometimes, sure, like I break the rule and I'm on my phone a little bit, but I know that I'm working towards it.
yeah,
Right, that's the main thing.
exactly. Yeah, none of us are
Just,
perfect, but it's nice to, because I feel you there, because you don't want to let life just pass you by any means. But getting back to as far as, so the digital marketing, so you really got into that space when you started with the whole gym launch concept for the gym that you partnered with. And so what shifted there to where you were going into the real estate space? Like what brought you into the real estate space from gym launch?
so much love to the gym. I think the people that are in the facility and the owners and the partners there, I'm still a part of partnership there. They're amazing, right? But the problem is there's just I'm not really fond of local businesses because the fact that there is a set TAM to it, the total adjustable market, right? There's a ceiling to what you can do in a marketplace. And with lead generation, one of the things I always tell my clients is that the guys who are doing nationwide of anything, and if you have the infrastructure built out to be able to conduct business nationwide, their cost per lead is always going to be cheaper because they have a broader audience to target to, right? They're not set to like the 100,000 people that you have in this local city or area. The second thing is the average ticket size. With even though we are a boutique kickboxing gym, we serve a lot of like the local like fighters. There's a set average ticket size in that industry, right? And also we don't do gen pop fitness. So a lot of the guys that come to us are typically, aspiring fighters, young guys that typically don't have the enough money made where they can pay, absorbent amount of money for like training. And unfortunately, I didn't realize that going into the business. And I realized, hey, selfishly, like it was like a passion project for me, but it's not my life. Like I need to make money and feed my family. So I need to figure out an industry where I can take this skill set that I learned of just acquiring direct response traffic leads, like people that are needing something today and they're opting in for a offer or a service that you're putting out on the web to convert and make money. And wholesale real estate was the closest thing that I could find where it comes to like, there's something that I have passion in, something I know, and my skill set, which is that's all the business is wholesaling, right? It's just marketing, getting more leads, and getting that contract locked up and to be able to broker that contract, right? So that's how I just chose this industry out of all of them.
Oh, that's smart. Now you mentioned wholesalers, so they're your primary. I mean, they're your primary client at this point in time. So you're forgot if I mentioned this in the beginning. So his company's REI Transfer, but as far as your primary client currently, it's for wholesalers in real estate.
Correct. So the reason why we said wholesalers and not real estate investors as much because we deal with guys that need a high volume of transactions. And typically, even if you're a flipper, how many like top 1% is flipping, like one, two, three properties a month. But the top wholesalers that I know, they're doing, they're looking to do, 7 to 10 contracts per month, right? So the innate volume of the business is just completely different with just acquisition companies wholesaling. And that's kind of aligned with what we're doing because we need to get you the traffic. We want you to spend more money to be able to acquire more deals. And it's like a win-win scenario when we're able to do that to optimize the data as well.
That's awesome. And so for the audience, as far as like, how would you describe a wholesaler? Like explaining that to the audience, what a wholesaler is.
So in real estate, right, when there is like let's just go through like the person the wholesalers serve, right? So I always like to go with this like who do you serve? The wholesaler typically serves the investor, a flipper, right? The flippers in an economy really dictates where the wholesalers are gonna go because they're taking the distressed properties, they're adding value to it typically through like, renovation, remodeling it, and then flipping it back on the market. And the people that find these opportunities for the flippers are typically the wholesalers. So a wholesaler really is the marketer who gets a person to they are the ones that are putting messages out into the world, asking people, hey, who here needs to sell their home extremely fast and need a convenient way to sell their home and is willing to take less of a value for their home for the convenience of cash and speed. That's all it is.
Yeah.
And then the wholesaler will get it under contract, and they will sell it to a fix and flipper on like basically like a spread, right? So like they're basically wholesaling it, and then they're making the spread, typically from anywhere of $5,000 on the low end, all the way up to I've seen assignment fees that's as much as like 60, 70 grand, right? But average is like inbound track. What we do is around like 22,000. That's kind of like where the sweet spot is nationwide.
Yeah, the way I like to explain them for somebody that's not necessarily in the real estate space is like they're kind of almost like unlicensed realtors, but maybe a little more aggressive. And they're really trying to get at what's the pain point, what's like how they're trying to find the more distressed situations, I guess you could say, and then help get the distressed out of that situation, and like you said, serve whichever client they're going after. Which the most common one's going to be your fix and flippers for the cash deals, but there's also some like buy and hold investors, so on and so forth. So no, that's helpful for the audience. It's always interesting to see everyone's like how they explain a wholesaler. So that's nice to know.
I think the best wholesalers I know, they think in the mind of a marketer, not so much of a wholesaler.
Yeah.
In their mind, the marketer only thinks about return on ad spend, so the ROAS, right? That if people throw those terms out, it's just return on advertisement spend. And the best wholesalers I know are just, hey, if I put in $1, what would that dollar become, and in what time frame would that dollar come back to me?
Smart.
And that's the guys that are doing, two, three, $400,000 a month plus $1 million businesses, the wholesalers in that realm of things. That's how they think. They don't think about anything else.
Yeah, no, that's fair. So with them, I mean, do you have any future aspirations to launch this to like any other like fields, whether not just real estate, but other markets as well?
So funny enough, you asked that, Josh. I mean, I have done work. I currently have clients in a lot of different fields. I only promote the fact that I work primarily with wholesale guys, just because that's like kind of brand that I'm trying to create. But I've done direct response lead gen for like merchant cash advance guys. I've done it for right now. We have active clients in the hard money niche. I've done obviously brick and mortar gyms. That's where like kind of like this whole thing started, right? The inception of me being a marketer, and I do it for my ladies lash tech business,
That's awesome.
right? So when it comes to marketing, everything like I can do it, but the thing is that I prefer to stick within like the niche that I'm in,
Hmm.
just because I don't want to overstress my team either, because the fulfillment process is innately different, and the speed of onboarding and launching advertisement is different. Like it will be way slower if it's a brand new business that I've never worked with compared to an acquisition company in real estate where I know I can get their ads launched within the next 24 hours. I know what to expect, and I can give you like, especially if it's a new person never running, going from like cold outbound, maybe cold calling SMS, where they're not spending a lot of money on marketing, but they're trading time, right? And they want to stop trading time, but instead of spending more money to acquire a warmer lead that are coming to them, they're not used to spending money daily on marketing, right?
Hmm.
Google PPC, they charge you per click. And I was looking at like the cost per lead in California, or cost per click, I'm sorry. It's around like $75 to $150 per click.
How
That
much?
doesn't mean that they are $75 to $150 per click.
Ouch. And that's no guarantee that you're actually going to get something from that. That's ouch.
It's not guaranteed to be a lead either, right? So, let's just say if your landing page converts at a very high rate at 30%, which typically the sweet spot is like 15 to 15 plus, anything above 15%, like you have a very high converting landing page. So if you're doing math, one out of every 8 clicks becomes a lead. So if your average cost per click is, let's just say simple math, $100, you're spending $800 before you're getting a lead. Like that's very expensive. That's why a lot of people resort to like Facebook, more like impression based marketing, whereas visual cost per lead could be much cheaper, right? Sub $200, sub $150, depending on the audience size. But a lot of these people, back to my point, is that they're not used to spending money daily. And for these guys, I'm able to tell them, hey, this is what you're going to expect. This is the timeline. This is the cost per lead, the cost per contract. So instead of themselves knowing this information, as the marketing partner, I can basically ease their anxiety of spending money every day and tell them, hey, Josh, like expect to spend X amount of dollars within X amount of time frame. Your money will come back to you, and this is the return on investment that we will predict based upon other guys in your area and what other guys are doing. And if you're not meeting those metrics, it's typically either it's not really a lead issue because we have so many like data to like back it. It's typically like a sales issue or an acquisition issue or a disposition issue,
Hmm.
right? They're locking things up too high. They don't really know how to pre-frame the conversation to get the contract right away on the first call. Where not just having enough like ability to dispo, right? They don't have the buyer's network simply.
No, that's a really good point that you brought up there. It's like you can bring the leads, but they still have to close them. I mean, this is inbound marketing, but you still have to have the team and acquisition set in place to where they're actually going to close those deals. So do you, to that end, do you offer any type of like coaching services or anything like that in addition to your marketing?
So I personally don't like to call myself a coach, but I end up giving pointers and advice and like just like little, you know, silver bullets for my clients, right? For example, like when we set them up, if they're using our internal system, we use a platform called Cycle Sales. It's a high level white label, but I don't own that company. I partner with somebody else just because I'm not an automation guy. I don't want to have to figure any of those out. That company, so we set them up on like an immediate like speed to lead system, right? We leverage AI, conversational AI chatbots to be able to capture somebody when they first come in, because if you're not in the game of marketing and sales, the high like you're supposed to get to a lead within the first like 5 minutes of them opting in, where there's like a 700% decrease of a chance of them ever converting. 700 is a lot. 700% is a lot,
Yeah.
right? So especially when you're talking about a huge pool of data, if you're spending, hundreds of thousands of dollars on marketing every single year. So we get them to set up on just small things like that that would increase their conversion rate. But realistically, it's sales. Like how, like, number one, do you have the nature to be doing sales, right? Do you understand the product that you're selling, right? The type of channel that you're marketing to, because every marketing channel will get you a different type of lead. A direct to agent, which is what we were talking about before, Josh, a DTA lead, is you're talking to realtors. It's going to be very different. The sales process is going to be very different compared to direct to seller. The direct to seller opting in from a Google PPC ad is going to be very different from a cold call lead, right? So you have to really figure out your sales style and how do you frame yourself on the conversation when you're talking to different leads coming from different channels, because their motivation level is going to be different. So I will have to tell my clients, especially when they're coming from, like, just say a cold SMS channel or a cold call channel, I have to tell them you have to be a lot more aggressive on that first call with an inbound motivated seller, because with an SMS lead and a cold call lead, they have more time. They're more unaware. They need to sell their home, maybe they have some interest, but you have more time to build rapport. They're not making a decision today. But if it's a PPC lead, which is Google, like they're searching up the term, need to sell my home fast, need to sell my home for cash, sell my home now, and a Facebook lead, these people are actively, they need to sell their home within the next 30 to 60 days. And that's where the motivation comes from. And if you don't figure out and bring them to the solution, somebody else will the second you hang up the phone, right? They're typically talking to 10 other people. So, the sales style has to be different. You have to be a little bit more aggressive. You have to be a little bit more knowledgeable. That's why I don't take on every single client when they're a wholesaler. Like, a lot of people reach out to me. I had a conversation yesterday with the gentleman. The first thing I asked is what channels of marketing have you dealt with, and what's the best, what's the worst, and what's your budget for the next 90 to 120 days going on, right? And if you don't have an X amount, if this is the last bit of Chipotle money that you have in your bank account, inbound marketing is not worth it. It's not for you, dude.
That's awesome. So as far as that's nice. Once you get to a certain spot in business to where you're able to turn clients down, that's definitely a good feeling for sure. Not necessarily, I don't want to say that in a bad way, but it's like your product's not meant for everybody. Let's face it. It's not meant for 100% of the audience. So it's good to know that. So that's good to know some of your criteria. But as far as marketing channels for the clients that you typically are bringing on, are they usually heavily focused on direct to seller? Or are they direct to agent, a little bit of both? What have you found the most success with, I guess?
So for us, we primarily work with direct to seller, because if you're spending all this money on a lead, you don't want a gatekeeper. Why are you marketing to a real estate agent? If it's an MLS deal, you'll just go on an MLS and you market directly to them, right? For what we do, we typically want to market to a person that is aware that they have an issue, they need to sell their home, but they're not actively searching, so it's not as expensive, right? The cost is much less, but they still need to sell. So we're kind of getting in front of their train of thought and kind of prompting them to make a decision before they get to the point of I always explain to people, it's we want to hit them when their gas is almost empty at at 20%, and get them at the sweet spot versus hey, I need to go to the gas station because I have 5 miles left, right? So the closer you are to empty on the fuel and as motivation, the more expensive that lead will become.
Gotcha.
Right?
No, that makes sense.
So we want to make sure that we hit that sweet spot of aware, but the pain point isn't there to actively search. So that's the best return on investment from what I've seen.
Yeah, no. So as far as with the wholesalers, do you find a fair amount of your clients that they're also is there a certain percentage that they're actually in the buy and hold space as well, or are they purely in the business of their wholesaling? They want to build their wholesale operation, and that's really where their mindset's at.
The most successful people that I know treat wholesaling like a wholesaling business. It's a subsidiary of they're not real estate investors and they don't tell people that they are. They became real estate investors because of tax purposes, right? Like for example, I know a guy, the first guy I ever met that got me into the space. He does like $200,000 to $300,000 a month, probably one of the highest level wholesalers that I know. He buys properties because he has to at the end of the year for deduction purposes, not because of the fact that he got into wholesaling because he wants to acquire property. I know a lot of people, they want to start wholesaling because they want to have better opportunity. They want to cherry pick their own deals. It never works like that. You're spending a lot more money.
That's like I've talked to other investors, and some of the ones that I've seen extremely successful in their buy and hold, like if that's really their goal is to buy and hold real estate, they're really much more successful if they're utilizing their time raising capital versus going towards the acquisitions. Like they're bringing in the wholesalers, and they're letting the wholesalers do all the work. The wholesalers bring them deals. They assess them, underwrite them, see if, hey, is this a deal for me? If so, I've got the capital over here. So I find the ones that if they think they're going in to cherry pick it, it's probably, and you probably have the same understanding here, is like that's probably not the best route. It's maybe not the best use of your time, because once you find it, okay, now who's paying for this thing?
Dude, and it's, it's like lead qualification. I tell
Yeah.
people this,
Hmm.
right? If you are an investor that have a specific buy box, you're going to be filtering out and building out this whole other business just to filter out more leads for you. Why don't you get people to filter out for you, pay a little bit more, and just protect your time? Because in the end of the day, at the highest level, I'd rather pay more for a lead to protect my time and to have more scalability in my marketing channel versus the opposite, where they're trying to, they're in their head, they're still thinking in a sense of like scarcity, right? There's not enough deals going around, so I have to market for my own deals, and I can make money while wholesaling. We're justifying with logic, right? I'll make some money with wholesaling, and I would be able to pick my own deals. But realistically, they don't realize, okay, what you're trying to say is that you're going to build a business that's probably one of the most competitive businesses in the world, and the marketing is just astronomical, right? You're going in there just in hopes to buy more real estate while making some side income. Like that's not, it's just like a kind of flaw logic. And I always tell people when I speak to them, I speak to a lot of people in sub too like this. Hey, well, I want to start running leads with you for what's it called, for to acquire off market properties. I was like, great. How long have you been wholesaling? I don't. I was like, what do you mean? He's like, well, I'm a anesthesiologist working at I work at a hospital. I was like,
What are you doing?
why? I was like, you make like 150 grand a year. I was like, why are you trying to become a wholesaler? I was like, well, I heard that that's the best way to find off market properties. I was like, okay, let's come back a little bit. Let's talk marketing, right? I was like, how does that make sense, right? I was like, you don't have time. She's like, I don't. Like, I work more than 9 to 5. I get good pay. Like, I don't need money. And I asked them this question. I was like, do you need money right now? Or do you want to just invest in real estate in the easiest way possible? They're like, oh, I don't need more money. I just thought it'd be nice to have a side income. Wholesale is not a side income.
Wholesale is a full blown job. It's not a
Yeah,
side income.
it's more than a whole like a full blown job. It's a very easy to like a very low barrier to entry kind of job where like you can pick up a phone call and just dial and make money, but it's extremely hard to scale because you have to deal with a lot of like human labor, which if you're not a good leader, it's very hard to scale a wholesale business.
I definitely agree with what you're saying as far as the scarcity mindset. That's one of the things. I mean, everybody, like some of the people that I talk to, that I used to work with in my corporate gig, they're like, "Oh, well, where do you find all these deals?" It's like there's deals literally everywhere. I mean, anywhere you look, it's just what are you looking for? You've got first got to figure out what you're actually looking for, and it's just like when you buy, like say you just bought a new car, and then now all of a sudden you're seeing that car literally everywhere. It's like, oh, everybody owns the same car as I got. It's like because you're just more in tune to it. So, but yeah, it's definitely.
One like golden nugget I can give to like your community and the people watching this video is that if you're a real estate investor and you're looking to acquire and get an edge for off market, deals, you can still run advertisement and you don't have to spend the same amount of money as the wholesaler to run advertisement. And a lot of people, they push organic, right, which is great. But the goal of organic is kind of just like getting people to know you, like you, trust you, so they bring you deals, right? So I always tell people if they have some money to spend on lead acquisition and you don't want to wait, you're not as patient, you don't want to wait till like Zuckerberg to bless your account with organic viral views, which is a whole different topic that we can talk into, you can systematically just get more viewership too. So what I tell people is like, hey, list out what's your target demographic, right? Who's going to be able to have the highest leverage to bring you leads for your business? So as an investor, it would typically be wholesalers, right? It would be maybe I need to build a relationship with lenders, maybe honestly, wholesalers are probably the main ones, right? Like they're going to be the ones with most of the deals, and real estate agents. So if you know that's your target demographic, speak their language and kind of figure out, okay, what do they look for in a buyer, right? Typically, it's the speed of transaction, having the ability to fund the deal right away. Any common objections that you guys will have when like having a conversation with a wholesaler or an agent, and that stops them from bringing a deal, address that in a video, and then you can run those advertisements as an awareness campaign, which is pennies on the dollar. I think it's like less than a penny per view. Just put $5 on it every single day and just run it in your local area that you're looking to buy.
Oh, that's
And
cool.
your account will grow organically. And as you post and as more deals that you do, the more events that you go to, more people are going to follow you. They're just going to bring you deals after deals after deals, right?
That's super smart. So the awareness campaigns, where are you finding the most success with those? Like what platforms are you really targeting with those?
So social media platforms like TikTok, Facebook, Instagram. TikTok just came back after a day of being dead.
Yeah, I noticed so CapCut, the video editing software. I had no idea that ByteDance owned them too. And I've been using that to edit some of my videos. And I go in to edit one. It was like one of the previous podcasts. I'm like, wait a minute, it's not working. So I had to find something
Dude,
else.
there's so many. Get yourself an editor, dude.
Yeah,
Like this
I need to.
online
Well, the
job.
thing is, I'm going the route where I'm actually hiring on editors because it's like I kind of enjoy that side of it, but it's such a time suck. And I mean, it's to what you were saying. Like you need to be focusing your time on what's the most valuable. And yes, I may enjoy that a little bit, but is it a valid use of my time or the best use of my time? Maybe not. So, but yeah, it's funny. So, one more question. Well, two more questions. As far as the data that you're going after, like are the wholesalers or your clients typically bringing you the data, or how does that work in your client base?
The algorithm is so powerful now, where as long as you use the right copywriting, which is just language, right, you can get a really distressed audience. So that's why advertisers are very the quality of leads can vary depending on who runs your ads, right? Typically, I tell people advertising is basically selling from one to many. So the person who is the main person owning the business and the direction, the brains of the operation, needs to be a natural salesperson. The reason is because you need to understand like language, right? The words that you're using. So on B2B advertising, one of the things that I tell people is that you don't want to use the word sick and tired, because if I want you to pay me money, Josh, I don't want you to be sick and tired. I want you to want to have an advantage, right? Maybe like that's why people see all those like secret methods. They want to get ahead. They're not sick and tired, and typically a sick and tired audience will typically have the hardest. Like they don't simply don't have enough money, right? And that's why they're sick and tired. So that's copywriting. So using highly distressed words that bring up motivations, like for example, speed. Speed is a huge determinant of motivation. So we use speed in our ads a lot. So do you need to sell your home as soon as possible, fast, closing at a certain time frame, right? We usually use words like that. If I want to get an audience that potentially have other offers, use words such as is. As is one of those words that typically as an investor we know it, but as a homeowner or just population, they don't know what that word means. So if I'm using as is, typically I'm getting a person that knows a little bit more about the home buying process than somebody else.
Yeah.
So you have to be very meticulous with the languaging that you choose, right? And back to your thing, so the algorithm and Facebook, Instagram, all these platforms is so powerful to the point where that as long as you use the right languaging, you're getting the right type of person.
That's awesome. That's good stuff. So as far as like with this business where it stands right now, like what's your end goal? Like where's where are your eyes set? Like what's your Mount Everest, or what's like what are you looking to accomplish with your business here in the next, say, maybe 5 years or so?
I want to bring real estate marketing to another level, right? A lot of the guys in the space right now focus on how can I make more money today? Direct response lead gen, right? They're talking about the ones that need to sell right now, but majority of the guys that I work with, only a very small percentage, and typically the highest earners, are worrying about money tomorrow. So I want to make REI Transfer the number one marketing partnership program and company that serves acquisition firms nationwide, right? Guys that are worried about their omni-channel, their reputation, their branding. How can we, do comment objection handling prior to the phone call? Like these are things that excite me a lot more in the marketing industry than just, hey, let me just generate you some leads, Josh, that you can close hopefully tomorrow, right? We want to dominate this space. We don't want to just compete. And a lot of the guys I'm working with, as I gradually like get more reputation in this space, gain more reputation in this space, a lot of the guys that are flowing towards me are not just guys that want more leads. They haven't like they're making two, three, $400,000 a month,
That's
but
awesome.
they need to start dominating the market.
So do you think down the line, is this something that you would eventually potentially sell, or is this something you're looking to kind of get all the systems in place, get the team in place, and just keep it as a business while you explore other things? Or
I think for agency owners, a lot of people in this space talks about like exits and stuff. But for me, dude, it's such a good cash flowing business and it's so fun. It's marketing, dude. It's you're making videos, you're figuring out what's the next thing that makes the next person tick on the other end. Like it's super hilarious. It's funny. It's fun.
that's the thing. If you love what you're doing, does it really work? I mean, is it really?
Yeah. And it's like for me, the goal is to be able to remove anything that I don't want to do. Like what I said, like go high level. I know a lot of agencies offer that as like an addition to their service. I hate backend automation and systems. Like I'm not that person. I eliminate anything and everything that has nothing to do with was I have the most leverage on. I like to be on these talks with you, Josh. I like to meet guys in person. I'm trying to go down the YouTube rabbit hole a little bit more, make some content on that end. But that's like what I'm passionate in, and making an advertisement. Finding what makes people tick and how to convince people to choose your product and how to stand out from other people. Like that's what I enjoy doing. So I think for my nature, it's like if I'm not doing this, I don't really know what else I'll be doing.
That's
Right.
fair.
So
That's fair.
I'm just gonna stick to it for now.
Yeah, my wife has given me kind of the same similar conversations as you've had with your lady. Is it's so when's enough, or when are we gonna exit? It's like I don't really necessarily have an exit in mind at this point in time. I'm enjoying what I'm doing. So, but yeah, that's awesome, man. Well, Will, I this has been absolutely fantastic. I really appreciate your time. I want to be respectful of your time because I know we've been on here for a minute, so I know you got clients to get to. But as far as the best place to reach out to you, like if you're a wholesaler, or if you're somebody to get better at lead generation, obviously wholesalers are the main ones for Will. REI transfer. I'll give you a link to kind of get a hold with Will there. But what's the best place to get a hold of you in general?
So you can follow me on Instagram, will.yus. That's my personal account. I do a lot of business on there too. Add me on Facebook, dude. Like I communicate with most of the people on Facebook still. I'm still at the point where, like I said, I like to delegate work out really, really fast. So I try to give myself time for like interacting with people, clients. Most of my clients have my personal cell line. I know that's a terrible thing to do. I'm trying to stop that, but most of the guys that I work with, they have my direct line still. Um,
Lucky them.
they can find me in places. Yeah. And it's just, like, they'll call me and say, I mean, I'm an investor myself too. So a lot of the things like we brainstorm, we figure out like, okay, can we raise like, is there anything that else we can do or any other value that I can bring to my guys versus just like running marketing for them, right?
That's
Because
awesome, man. I love that. It's definitely the personal touch, and when you get to work directly with the founder, I mean that's a huge impact. So that's awesome. So we'll make sure to get his contact information in the show notes and all that stuff. But yeah, other than that, man, what would you say is like your biggest need at this point in time? What if the audience is looking to get a hold of you? I always say, if you're going to get a hold of somebody like Will, who's really taking action, you need to be providing some type of value. So what value could somebody bring to you if they're reaching out to you?
Right now, to be honest, Josh, like most of the guys, unless they're operating at a super high level, like I want to get into like development. This is beyond the marketing side of things. I have a lot of family out in Asia, right? There's a lot of developments that's backed by EB5 visas right now. Any opportunities like that, reach out to me. Let's make some business happen. If not, anything to do with marketing, feel free to reach out to me. There is a minimum requirement for us to be working together. I don't work like typically. You have to be doing at least, you know, $30,000 to $50,000 a month in revenue for your business for us to be able to help you out and a solid like structure for your team. And that's a bare bone minimum that I'll work with.
Yeah, and typically with that, I mean, 30 to 50K a month. That could be like three to five deals a month.
Yeah, so nothing crazy.
Yeah.
Like I think at that revenue point, like you're at the point where you can reinvest back into your business without feeling like you're bottlenecking and like you're putting your family in a position where they can't eat.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
That's another thing I like. I mean, going back to the integrity side of things, is I really like that you lead with that. It's like, hey, don't bite off more than you can chew. I'm trying to help you out, but I don't want to put you in a really bad space. So that's awesome. But again, Will, I really appreciate your time. This has been awesome. I think this is going to be a super valuable episode for everyone. So again, I'm going to put that Will's contact in the show notes. And yeah, that's it for this episode, guys. Thanks for tuning in.